Welcome to part 2 of the course. In this part, we're going to be covering the planning steps in detail.
Planning is by far the most important part of the job. Deciding what services and equipment will be needed in each room of the house, where to mount hardware, designing each network, and developing a list of materials and cable we'll need. Now first, as always, determine the customer's requirements and expectations for the installation. Determine what external services are available at the house location and which to use. Determine and document what services will be needed in each room based on the overall project plan. Determine the outlet types and locations in each room and mark the location on the walls and a set of plans if available. Then determine the distribution center you'll need and its location.
Create a cable schedule. This is a list of each cable you'll be installing. Design each network and determine the distribution center equipment necessary to support each network. Finally, finish the equipment schedule with all the parts and equipment, including cable, you'll need for the job. This will be part of your overall job documentation. Now, the steps don't necessarily have to be done in this order, but the order works pretty well.
And they're the same whether you're working with a small production home or a large custom home, although the process within each step will be different.
Let's cover each step in a little more detail. First, as always, determine the customer requirements and expectations for the installation. Now, this is part of any job and will set the project goals in terms of what the builder or homeowner is trying to achieve for entertainment, security, comfort, and convenience.
You know, Grayson, in the design process, this phase is called needs assessment.
Right.
And this is when we need to become expert communicators. We need to be able to ask just the right questions to find out what our customers actually need. Part of your job is to inform the customer about what sources are available where his home is located. This means you need to be very familiar with the various services and plans available from local and national service providers, from cable to high-speed internet service.
Now, this isn't always easy since these services are changing all the time. You've really got to keep up with current events in your local broadband neighborhood. You'll want to pre-wire for the common services we know about today, such as cable, satellite, and off-air. And in a custom home, you'll want to decide on the specific services to use, since this will impact the equipment selection and the channel planning.
Don't forget to check with the builder or the local telephone, cable, or other providers servicing the site and find out if there are any special requirements that you should know about prior to planning and installing the system.
In some communities, 2 or more cables may be required to offer some cable television services or channels. And it's also a real good idea to get to know your local cable company engineer.
Let's take a closer look at each service to understand the planning considerations.
While you can assume that voice service is always available, it may be available from service providers other than the traditional phone company, such as the cable company. Simply plan on an adequate pre-wire for each provider. We recommend running 2 coax cables to the coax NID and 2 Cat5 cables to the telephone NID. Since these NIDs are typically co-located, this allows either cable to be used for either service.
And since fiber to the home is a reality in some areas, you may also choose to run a pair of multi-mode glass fibers to the NID location from the distribution device. We'll cover more about the NID pre-wire in the next part of the course. Broadband internet service is available from many different sources. DSL from the telephone service provider, cable internet from the cable company, fixed wireless services, and two-way satellite service.
Now, in a production home, the pre-wire you do for voice and cable service should be adequate to support broadband internet access from either of these providers.
In areas where cable or DSL service are not available or in a custom installation, you may want to pre-wire for fixed wireless or even two-way satellite service. While the equipment for both services is installed by an authorized contractor, you can easily pre-wire the installation. Fixed wireless service will use a single RG6 cable from the distribution center to the antenna. The antenna location will require a line of sight path to the transmitting antenna.
Now, at our project house, we've got high-speed internet access available from cable, satellite, and fixed wireless. Now, we chose to use the local cable provider because he's got the best access speed and rate combination.
Outside broadband AV sources will come from some combination of cable, satellite, and off-air broadcast. Again, infrastructure planning should pre-wire for all 3 services.
Right. As we mentioned in Part 1, cable operators are now offering standard definition digital channels as well as analog channels, and some are offering high definition channels. Receiving digital channels requires a digital decoder set-top box at the TV location. Now, you've got to get this thing from the cable provider since they're not yet standardized.